Good morning and welcome to this panel on enterprise security and resilience as part of ZertoCon. It's my pleasure to be hosting this. My name is Jacques Benkowski. I'm with US Venture Partner, which is a large West Coast-based venture capital firm. We've invested in Zerto in 2011, so before any of you were customers. And that was a bit of a leap of faith. But when we talked to the beta testers, they were telling us that this product is so amazing that they don't care that it's not GA. They're already using it. And so that was what convinced us. And to be standing here at ZertoCon and seeing 5,000 customers mark being passed is a real proud daddy moment for people that were part of the adventure from the beginning. So the reason they asked me to do this is USVP has been a very active investor in cybersecurity, and I myself on the board of a couple of security companies, so we have pretty interesting insights into what's going on. But more importantly, we have a panel of people that probably know even more than I do, starting on the left with Shai from CyberArk, who's responsible for the red team part of the shop, which is basically where you simulate attacks, so he knows how to break into people. We have Tom, who's with Dotwell Health, and he's in charge of the ID department and has a great story to tell. And finally, Tsachi Shabsa, who's with CloudLock, who was recently acquired by Cisco and is in the access control for cloud services. So maybe I can start from the left. Shai, if you want to introduce yourself a bit more deeply, you got 2 or 3 minutes to do that.
Sure. So my name is Shai Nahari. I'm the head of Red Team Services in CyberArk. Just for those who don't know, CyberArk was founded in 1999. It helps reduce the attack surface by securing privileged accounts in the organization. The company went public in 2014 as more than 45% of the Fortune 100 and more than 25% in the Global 2000. The department I run is doing red team services, basically doing adversary simulation, helping customers to measure their ability to detect and protect against advanced attacks. Yeah, that's it.
Great. Tom?
My name's Tom Kerrigan. I'm the IT manager for Dotwell Health. We are Boston-based healthcare centers. We run 2 healthcare centers. And we're part of a network of about 13 healthcare clinics that are located in and around the Boston area called Boston HealthNet. And we are sponsored and we feed Boston Medical Center. So if our patients come to see us, we're in the rural communities. So I run all the IT services for them.
Great. And Tsachi?
Yeah, my name is Tsachi. I was one of the co-founders at the company called CloudLock. We deal with cloud security. We got acquired by Cisco last August, so I'm now part of Cisco, which is a great company. I am a startup guy, so to keep my soul in good shape, I joined the board of a cybersecurity startup called IronScales that helps organizations deal with spear phishing attacks.
Great. So maybe let's start with the state of the security landscape these days. Of course, everybody can read the newspapers, but a lot of those things are very sensational, but there's a lot going on that goes unreported, or at least not putting a lot of focus on it. And people that live security day in, day out see the latest attack as an interesting event, but not necessarily the biggest thing that we've seen. And so maybe I'll ask you, maybe starting with you, Tsachi, what's the state of what you see? What are the type of crazy Wild West stories that are coming down?
Yeah, if you ask me to use one word, I'd say the state is good. In 2 words, not good. So I think things are obviously going not very well. And I think when you try to rationalize why are we seeing all these attacks, and it's not just attacks on businesses like yourself, Tom, but it's stealing, hacking tools from the NSA, the CIA, hacking into banks, hacking into, the Democratic Party. When you think about it, you got to realize that everything is hackable. And everything is hackable for two main reasons. One of them is when you think about the amount of software you have in your environments and the millions and millions and sometimes even billions of lines of code that are running those operating systems, the firmware on the chips, the programs that you're running on your computers, and you apply even a 0.5% error rate or bug rate in the source code, there are a lot of exploits that exist today in your environment, and each one of those exploits is an attack vector for an attacker to come in. And on top of that, each one of us and each one of you have a very weak link in your organization. They're called people. And your employees can be tricked and are being tricked, even if everything else is, works perfectly okay. And so it's a given that if someone wants to hack into your organization, they're going to get in. I really envy Shai. Shai has a really easy job. Yeah. Like, you're going to succeed every time as a red team. You are probably succeeding, getting into an environment. So it's, I don't envy the people that have to deal and defend and deal with and think about cybersecurity. And when I thought about this event and coming here, I really thought about the fact that this is the type of solution everybody has to have, because, and we saw this just last week with WannaCry, you're going to get hacked. And if you're lucky, you're going to know that somebody did something with your information. If you're unlucky, someone will manipulate, a spreadsheet with financial results or somebody's salary, and you won't even know about it. So, sorry for being so gloomy. But
No, you're right. And, the key point also, which I'm sure we're going to get more from Shai on, is it's a completely asymmetric situation, right? As a defender, you got to defend all the time. As the attacker, they only have to succeed once. And so that asymmetry makes our lives much harder. So let's talk to somebody who knows about the attack surface.
Yeah, so I absolutely agree with you. I have the easiest job. I only need to succeed once. Definitely, from the attacker perspective, if I'm looking a few years ago, getting into systems and exploiting systems was something harder. The skill level was very high. And as we move forward, and I see this day and age, you go to GitHub, you get an open source attack tool, you modify it, you can hack everyone. So I think the skill of the attacker is much lower today. The bar is much lower. And I think that, combining with the widespread of systems out there, and now we're talking IoTs, we're talking smart light bulbs, everything can be hacked. So I think that's one of the reasons why we see so many cyber attacks. And there is a joke in the hacker community that there are two types of companies that got hacked, a company who doesn't know they got hacked. These are the only two types. There aren't any companies who's not going to get hacked. So yeah, definitely, the bar is very, very low. And I think if I'm putting, my blue team hat for a second, I think the assumption should be that you're breached. You should assume that somewhere in your organization, a user clicked on the link. Somewhere in your organization, you have a compromised workstation, and start with that. Don't assume that you can protect everyone in your organization. Once you start thinking like that, assume that somewhere in your organization you have a malicious insider, your security posture will definitely improve.
Great. I think, the other element which you clearly are alluding to, and Tom can attest in a second, is, 10 years ago, if you were a bank, you were going to be attacked. If you were a high-value target, you were going to be attacked. For me, what's been new is how much down market it has gone, right? I mean, you see law firms, you see hospitals, you see people that don't actually have a really valuable, money or assets, but just the ability of attacking is still there. And so maybe, Tom, you can tell us about what happened to you.
Yeah, so we went through a couple different types of attacks, but the biggest one was a Cryptolocker virus, which unfortunately is user-based, and it's not a hacker trying to break through your firewall, get to a device and attack it. It's a user who doesn't really pay attention, is not trained well, unfortunately, and that's a big thing that you all have to do when you go back is come up with a good training program to educate your users on what to and what not to do. And I'll explain that a little bit more. So I started with the company in August of 2015, and they had two prior hacks, both ransomware attacks. And both times they were able to recover by going back to backup. So our disaster recovery strategy at that point was, let's go back to backup. So after I was there, it happened another time. And every single time it happened, it was from a user who was checking their personal email, whether it was Gmail or Hotmail or whatever, and there was a link in an email, click on this, and it came from Russia. Every single time, it came from Russia. So that was one thing that we eventually was able to resolve. But so we had just finished the third attack, my first, and restored all of our systems back, which is many hours, with a couple of terabytes worth of dental x-rays, et cetera. We were down basically for most of the day, 6 hours that it took us to bring back all of the information. We went up to the VTUG conference in Maine. We met Zerto. We liked the product. We thought, hey, we could bring back our system if we got attacked again, because we knew we were going to get attacked again the way it was going, in record time. So they came down. We did a point of concept. We built a server, got it up and running. And one of the main servers that got hacked the first time, or not got hacked, but got encrypted, we put that as our point of concept server. That was on a Friday. It took all of about an hour and a half to get it up and running and working. I went on vacation on Saturday. Monday morning, we got hacked again. And I mean, it's a joke. It's sort of a joke, but I say it took me longer to connect in VPN and get my SE on the phone than it did to actually fail over and bring the system back up. So our dental department was back up in 15 or 20 minutes. So, for us, it was done out of need. We've been enjoying the product ever since. And, we took other steps to do some further prevention. I can get into that at some point if you want.
Great. I don't know, who was at the general presentation yesterday? Show of hands, quickly. So I thought he had this really great formula, which is simple, which is your risk is the threat times the vulnerabilities times the consequences. And I happen to be on the board of a company that tracks vulnerabilities. They have a couple of hundred customers. They have 1 billion known vulnerabilities, meaning those 200 customers have 1 billion entry point that they know about. And the question is, what are you going to do about that? Well, you can fix some of them, but you never have enough manpower. I'm sure you can attest to that, to fix them all. And so maybe we could get, starting with Tom, with the notion of, okay, the threat is increasing, the vulnerabilities, you can make it better, but you never make it perfect. So what about the consequences? What are your consequence mitigation procedures?
So in our case, we ended up looking at the payload and how it was delivered, and it came via an email. So the first thing is, education, like I said before, train your users to make sure you don't click on things that you don't know. And it gets tricky with spoofing and whaling and all that other kind of stuff. But I mean, then we had to look at actually locking down, and so we had implemented a new firewall system from Cisco with a company they bought called Firepower, and the Firesight module. We had that in monitoring during this whole hacking encryption. We had it running, but it was only in monitoring mode. It wasn't in blocking mode, and the reason why we did that was because of a decision made by the executives that we didn't want to lock down too much, and it would probably or could possibly affect how they do business, which is true. That's the consequence is, you lock it down and what part of your business suffers. So after this attack, we went in, and after the last one, and we recovered with Zerto. One of the things that you can do with firepower is you can do geolocation blocking, and all the payloads came from Russia, from China, from North Korea, all blocked. We block about 34 countries right now, and it's been working well. And so that's the consequences. How far do you go?
Right, and the threat will evolve, and they'll figure out how to proxy through another countries.
That's
and
right,
it will look like legitimate traffic. So let's go back to the human element, maybe for you, Tsachi, right? I mean, there was this big question which helped you guys be successful of people in the enterprise accessing a whole bunch of services that, they were either licensing officially or sometimes not so officially. Everybody can go with a credit card and sign up to yet another SaaS service and put themselves and the enterprise at risk. So let's talk about that move to cloud services and how you control that threat.
Yeah. So first of all, I just learned you're a Cisco customer, so thank you for
Oh
being a
yeah,
customer.
you're welcome. Big Cisco customer.
And before coming in here, I learned that Zerto is a Cloudlock customer, so thank you, Zerto, for being a customer. And you guys can rest assured that Zerto protects your information by using Cloudlock. But yeah, for us, one of the main use cases was helping organizations how their employees use cloud applications. And there are two aspects of cloud usage. There are sanctioned cloud applications. So an organization, you guys might be using something like Office 365 or Salesforce.com. And if you're in the healthcare business, you want to control the type of information that goes into those applications and who's doing what with those applications. And that's one aspect. And the other aspect is something called shadow IT. So shadow IT, to your point, Jack, is when someone goes out and sign up to Dropbox account or AWS account and spins up their own services, which creates risks on multiple levels. First, it's a new attack vector that IT in this case is not even aware of. Mm-hmm. There's obviously regulatory risk if PHI information goes up into one of those applications that are unsanctioned. It can put the patient's information at risk, but also the business itself at risk. And so we see organizations now trying to deal with that risk by discovering through maybe collecting logs from the firewall or other means what type of cloud applications are being used by their employees, classifying those applications by risk. And really what we're seeing nowadays is that organizations are trying to work with the employee base on sanctioning as many of these applications. So if I see that 40% of the employee base is using Dropbox and I'm the IT guy, maybe we should be using Dropbox as an organization or sanctioning another file collaboration tool. So that's a big trend that we're seeing nowadays. If you're starting a business nowadays, Cloudlock was the second company for us. Both companies that we started, our data center was not existent. We had no data center. We had nothing on-prem. Everything for us was in the cloud. So I think when you're starting, a new business in the last, few years, you're 100% in the cloud. And for a lot of enterprises and organizations, they're going through a journey to the cloud, and they find themselves in somewhat of a hybrid cloud environment where some of their information is stored and kept on premise, and some of the information and applications are moving to the public cloud. So definitely a big risk factor.
So maybe let's talk to the hacker here, the nice hacker though.
Friendly.
How often is the path to entry, a known vulnerability that you guys just bang on everything that's available and eventually find a door, and how often you just do social engineering on a specific person and send them a link saying, hey, I'm glad we went on vacation together, look at the pictures we collected, please click here to see my pictures.
Yeah, so I'll excuse me when I'm going to talk as an attacker. So if I'm, giving you the other side, I can tell you this: I haven't used public exploit for 5 years. Either we find our own exploit during the engagement, or we use some sort of phishing. And phishing can be much more sophisticated than what the Nigerian prince type of scam. So I'll give you an example. So we had an engagement when we targeted the CEO of the company, and we sent him an email spoofing like it's coming from his wife, and telling him something about his kid. Look at that. And I can tell you personally, I would click on that. If I get an email from my wife telling me something about my kid, I'm going to open this. The point I'm trying to make is phishing will succeed to some degree. Education is very important, but attackers will get in. And I think the second aspect of this, from not talking about the human elements, the more we look into organizations, we find out that companies spend a lot of time protecting their perimeter, but once you're inside, that's it. It's flat network. And one of the messages we're trying to convey is that you should treat your internal network as a hostile territory, just like you would not think about putting an RDP server over to the internet. At least I hope you don't think about that. You should not doing that in the internal network as well. The borders between external and internal are gray. Privileged account, once we get in, we get a phishing attack, we get in, we compromise the first organization, and then we're going to look after privileged account. We'll find credentials for domain admin, and we'll move from there. And as a defender, it's going to look like a normal user. We're basically going to impersonate a regular user. So again, just start thinking of your internal network, and we'll talk about the cloud in a second and in that variation. Start thinking of your internal network as well, the same as you would think of your external network. It's as hostile as your external network.
And thank you for the segue. Obviously, one of the reasons to push to the cloud from the security standpoint is, even if you look at an organization like Tom has, well, you just don't have the resources, and you probably can't even acquire the talent to work through the issues and the constant attack. And you're talking about one on Friday, one on Monday. I mean, there's only so much you can do, and at the end you get swamped. And certainly our assessment is the level at which you can no longer handle this is going up. It used to be that if you were a small company, 100, 200 employees, okay, you can't do it. Now, even if you have 10,000 employees, you have an IT group that has maybe 10, 20 people, and then you have a couple people that know about cyber, but they're not the best experts in the world, and they're being bombarded. And so the logical step is to go, well, let's go to the cloud, and the cloud service providers has all those defenses and all those people. How do you see that move, happening, and how do you see that as maybe at least temporarily a solution? Maybe start with you.
So the cloud for healthcare is, at this point, still a no-no. I mean, we had a panel yesterday, and it was pretty much 80% healthcare people on the panel, and one of the audience members asked, who here has anything in the cloud? Nobody raised their hand. So, and it's going to get there eventually. I really do feel that. The things that concern me now is exactly what you said, is Dropbox, OneDrive, Google Drive. That's all there. So can I block that? Yes, I can block that at my firewall. Do I block that? Not yet. And why? Because the CEO uses Dropbox, and other people in management need to have it. So, is it secure? It's as secure as they can tell you it is. But when Dropbox gets hacked, what happens from there? Because it's going to happen. Hopefully, companies like you guys block that stuff and work through that. But there's always a better, and again, education. There's always a better way to do something. If they need that type of file sharing, we can provide that in a secure environment, on-prem, and we can work through that. I don't see us going to the cloud right now. I mean, even if we do go there, it'll be pretty much primarily for backup purposes, I think, initially, maybe for DR purposes as well. But right now, we're still on-prem and private.
Tzachi, what do you see in your customer base? And not just the SaaS part, you know, and by the way, an anecdote I have to tell because otherwise I won't feel good. We tried to block zip files because for a while there were zip file-based attacks. And what we found out is people were saying, well, okay, don't send it to my corporate email, send it to Gmail, and
And
I'll
then they get
download
it
it
from
there.
Right.
So there's only so, and you know, and it's normal behavior. People will do that. I have a job to do. I need that zip file. I need it today. Right?
Exactly.
So, but back to you. What do you see happening in your customer base? And certainly there's a big move to the cloud. Is that helpful?
Yeah, so there's two interesting aspects. One of them is when I look at organizations that do not allow their employees to use cloud applications, they're creating the shadow IT problem. They're forcing their employees to use unsanctioned, insecure cloud tools. And the reason being is we want to work the way we live. And in our personal lives, we're all using the cloud. And we're coming to our workplace and we want to use the same tools, the same capabilities. We want to access our information from anywhere, any device, anytime. And that creates kind of the shadow IT problem, which at the end of the day creates an even bigger risk in the environment. And so what we see with a lot of our customers nowadays that they're trying to come to terms with the fact that we all want to work the way we live, and cloud is going to make its way, and they're better off saying, you know what, if the CEO uses Dropbox, I'm going to deploy a security solution on top of Dropbox so I can monitor and govern the usage of Dropbox in my environment. So that's a big trend and a big shift. It used to be 3-4 years ago that it was all about blocking. I'm going to block all these cloud applications. And then you get the phone call from the CEO telling you, you're not blocking my Dropbox. Forget about it, right? And you get a phone call from the CFO, and you have to open up and allow all these services. And so we're seeing a shift towards, you know, I'm the IT guy. I want to have visibility, and I want to know what everybody's using. I'm going to sanction the things that I think I can add another layer of security on top of, and I see a large enough number of employees that use those services, either that or they're a VAP or an exec in the company, and become part of the solution and not turn employees to be part of the problem.
Right. On the attack side, and again, not so much on the SaaS, but on the real cloud, the Amazons and all that, are you actually seeing the beginning of those attacks on cloud infrastructures?
Yeah, I can tell you on almost every engagement, most customers, I absolutely agree with Zaki. Most customers are already using clouds in, one way or another. In fact, in most scenarios, when we sit with the customer to understand what are the crown jewels, we see more and more crown jewels being, migrating to the cloud. So, DevOps start doing the development, to the cloud, push directly to the cloud. Even customer data. I know it's not big in healthcare, but SaaS environment, you start having multi-tenant solutions. All your customer data is now in different location, not on premise. I think the real problem is most organizations still look at the cloud as a separate entity. They see that, yes, we can pay Amazon or whatever it is and get another, someone to hold our data. And the problem is, in my mind, they should start thinking of the cloud as an extension of their own business. Just, do the same thing you do for your own business. Protect the same assets, just like you would not, think about, giving everyone domain admin. Why would you give everyone access to your cloud? Once organizations start thinking of that as an extension versus a separate entity, and I think we're not quite there yet.
Yeah, and I think you cannot abdicate and say it's not my problem. It's Amazon's problem. You have to deal with it. Maybe if you have any questions from the audience, if anybody has some burning issue that they would like to bring up. You're all completely terrified.
You should be.
And you should be, yes.
Just maybe also, if I can answer the
Sure.
same question again. So 2 weeks ago, right before WannaCry, there was an attack using Gmail. I don't know how many of you were affected by that, but basically it started with spear phishing and an email coming through Gmail. and using something called OAuth. And basically, the request in the email coming in was to authorize a specific application to have access to the Gmail credentials of the environment. So that was a pure cloud attack on the cloud using what amounts to be an APT, Advanced Persistent Threat, that was created in the cloud, resides in the cloud, and attacking a cloud application. The interesting thing is, even though it was a pure cloud-to-cloud attack, once the attacker gets in and they have access to somebody's email, they can move around the network using that. And so I agree with Shai that the cloud is part of the extended perimeter and should be treated as such. And more importantly, we see a lot of customers think that by going to the cloud, they're outsourcing the security responsibility to the cloud provider, and it's not the case. There's really a shared responsibility model if you think about it. Yes, Amazon does a great job, and they are responsible to the security of their data center and your data. But you are responsible for how your employees use those cloud services and what data goes in and out of those cloud services. And so again, agreeing with Shai here, is the cloud is part of the perimeter, it's part of your environment. Whatever you're doing on-prem, you need to apply the same procedures towards your cloud applications.
Great. So maybe let's focus on the assumption that we're all going to get hacked, and the inside and the outside, we just as vulnerable, and that's the way people should think about it. So resilience is a critical part of the way people are thinking about it. Is you're going to get attacked, and what are you going to do about it? Yeah. And the Sony case, I think, for those who know the space, was sort of the ultimate. They didn't know at all what was trustable. They actually went back to pencil and paper and calling each other because they didn't even know they could send each other an email because they didn't know who was who and what was trustable. So the question is, what's your morning after plan? And what are you guys seeing as best practices in terms of that resiliency? Maybe, again, starting with you, Tom.
So I think the key is to be prepared, because as I say, it's not a matter of if, it's when. So it's going to happen. To what extent, that's going to be determined. Do the best you can do as far as building the outside edge of your network. If you don't have the knowledge on staff, get somebody that can help you do it. There's plenty of companies out there that can come in and design it for you. But do the normal things. Make sure security patches are done. Make sure everything has McAfee on it. Make sure that everything that leaves your network is encrypted. Every one of our laptops doesn't leave our building doesn't leave the IT room unless it's encrypted. That's the first part. Flash drives, it's all about common practice and all backed up by education. This WannaCry thing, where would it have gone if that one researcher didn't figure out how to stop it? It could have got everywhere. So be prepared for that. Use Zerto to back up your critical data. Because if that virus does get in and it's a Cryptolocker or a ransomware, what's your game plan the morning after? Is, all right, it happened at 8:05. I'm going to go back to 8 o'clock. I'm going to play the journal back. I'm back up in 10 minutes. So that's our plan anyway.
What do you see, Shai?
So I think I'd look at that the same as I would look at any other drill or preparation. I think you should prep for it. As Tom said, it's going to happen. Prep, make sure that you know what you're facing, what you're going to do. On a more tactical level, ensure that there is a separation of both privileges and connectivity between your DRs. Making sure that if we're talking ransomware, which is automatic tools, you don't have any way to be infected in both places. And really it comes down to actually practice. Do a run, simulate scenarios where you're going to hit in one location, and see how fast and how quick, what your process is to come back on a different side.
Yeah. And definitely, just want to add one thing. Definitely, use companies like theirs that can actually show you what your vulnerabilities are. You know, do the penetration testing, make sure that, you know, go through an engagement, and they're there. The holes are there. You said that. It's not hard to find. It's just what extent is the damage after the fact.
Right.
Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I'd say three things. If you read the news, 99% of the attacks are coming in through email spear phishing. So invest in an employee training and awareness program on how to deal with those emails when they come in. The second thing is, if you buy into the fact that everything is hackable, then you need to start shifting resources away from prevention into detection, and figure out that once someone is on your network, how do you find out they're on your network? And the third thing is, go to the CFO and get some budget for disaster recovery, because, you know, you're going to get hacked, you're going to get ransomware, and you need a solution like Zerto. And I was telling the Zerto guys that, you know, someone has to do that for the cloud also.
That's right.
Because those ransomwares are everywhere.
Oh, yeah?
It just reminded me a story, if I may. Something you said. Before I joined CyberArk, I had my own company doing that. And one day I get a call from a customer, and he's asking me, so what do I do with this? You know, we were thinking about this ransomware and want to get protected. So, okay, that's good. Let's talk. So no. I want you to help me buy bitcoins. So you know, once I get hacked, I can pay.
There's actually a theory, I don't know if you guys know, but the Bitcoin value has gone up dramatically since the beginning of the year. And there's a theory that the ransomware, you know, the WannaCry, which by the way was completely unrealistic, right? You're not going to get something of that magnitude pay through Bitcoins. But it was actually a currency manipulation on Bitcoin, and that's where the money was made, not on the WannaCry.
Interesting theory.
There was a question at the back. Go ahead.
I have a question related to, so during General Hayden's presentation yesterday, he introduced the concept of insurance for large complex systems now running in the cloud. I was at a conference in Singapore, medical conference very recently, and I spoke with both the government side of things, who are trying to condense all of the patient information, and also representatives from Allscripts. For those of you not in healthcare, Allscripts manages all of your prescriptions. And essentially, the nurses that go out at night and dish out various different medications are completely dependent on this tablet for servicing all of the patients. So one of the representatives from the National Health Bureau in Singapore said, we're very interested in your technology, because if something like that happened to us, if something that occurred to the NHS in the UK happened to us here, people would die. We would be unable to go back to paper. It just wouldn't work. So with that in mind, and the concept of insurance, what are your opinions on that in terms of how companies can be incentivized financially to mitigate the risks on their systems, so their own users don't suffer? Or do you think it's not a sensible idea, and that instead, if you're going to issue companies with insurance policies, it will essentially be a blueprint for guys who are using various different tools to enter systems?
So I'll take the first stab at it. But so the topic of cyber insurance is definitely, you know, hot and growing. The problem is when you talk to the underwriters and the people that, you know, are trying to assess the risk, they have no way of knowing, you know, how much of a risk does an environment represent. So that's one of the challenges on their end. And there's a whole industry that's forming up around that problem. So that's one aspect. I would say that while insurance is a good thing to have, there's a lot of bad things that would happen beforehand. So, you know, if you had, you know, Tom, if you were to buy insurance, you know, you'll get some money maybe at the end of the day from the insurance company.
Right.
But between, you know, you being impacted and you getting the money, you're going to suffer a great deal. So you want to invest in that, you know, being able to recover and detect if you can before you get hit, probably.
So I think most organizations at this point are embracing cyber insurance, and I know we did, and we did it for a couple different reasons. One, for for our liability. You know, if we were liable to our patients, there's going to be a monetary amount that needs to be paid out, and that's just one part of it. But I think in the presentation yesterday, I think that's going to bring everybody to a new level. I think the implementation of cyber insurance is going to make it, I don't know how long it'll take, but it's going to make it, it's going to bring everything up, it's going to raise the bar on, you know, what is allowed, what is not allowed, and how is that recovery. So I think it's two aspects, you know, a monetary coverage, if you will, and then bringing it to a better level on decreasing in the future attack.
Yeah, I think, you know, one of the advantages of that movement is it puts in place best practices, because if you want to not pay a crazy premium, you got to be good. But the speed at which the best practice evolves is way faster than once a year. And so if your cyber insurance company is going to evaluate your practice once a year, well, they're very exposed. The other element, besides the fact that it actually doesn't help Tom all that much, is that you're creating a situation where you have a completely nonlinear risk. You know, if you look at car theft, well, there's lots of statistics about how likely you are to get your car stolen based on the model where you live and all that. This stuff, it's like earthquake insurance in California. You know, I mean, you can't have it because the day it happens, all insurance companies will go bankrupt. There was another question about?
Oh.
Yeah.
So we currently don't block Gmail. We could. You know, we can block any type of website or content or anything that we wanted to. Again, it's that consequence of how much is too much. You know, does somebody in VIP or management use Gmail to check their things during the day? Probably. Would that cause an issue? Probably. I mean, you're right in it's more reactive. It's, you know, where did they go and what did they do?
Sure.
You know, the Firesight module gives us some really great reporting tools and analyzes top threats and, you know, and rates them. So I run that every other day, and I look at, well, what is the top threat today? And, you know, if that determines that, you know, we'll need to crack down a little bit more, then I think that's something we do. But yeah, we have the ability. We don't do it currently, and it's like you said, it's more reactive.
I think it's really, really difficult to do that because each one of you guys have an LTE phone in your pocket.
True.
And if you really block me, I'm going to tether off my phone, and I'm going to go and get to all my services that I want to get to. And so I think it's a losing battle to try and block that, let alone you're going to piss off all the executives in the organization.
Right.
And what you want to do is maybe go to the executives and say, hey, listen, you guys are all using these services. Give me the budget to help, you know, put some governance around these services so you guys can get to use what you want to use.
Yeah.
Great.
I was also going to comment on Firesight. I don't know if anybody else here uses Cisco Sourcefire and hands on it, but a couple weeks ago, our security officer she was running around with her hair on fire. She's like, "Kappa, stop your virtual replication. You're a very virus." Stop it. I'm like, oh, great, virus. So what had happened is I just put a new file server on that replicate, and Sourcefire was watching that streaming and found a file, dormant file on there that's been there forever that had a virus on it. That AMP never caught it. Our SOCO system never caught it. Since we were replicating, that, we are a
That's actually a great product evolution idea. You guys got that? You know, use Zerto as replication to filter out files. Great. Thank you. I'm sorry, we actually, can we keep going, or are we running out of time? Go ahead.
So one question about mobile devices, personal devices, that are allowed to be brought into the company and connect to the wireless network. Just curious to know thoughts about that as an attack vector, because they're not logging into the corporate network, but they are connected in, and people may be checking Gmail there as opposed to checking on a computer. Any thoughts about that as a risk vector? And
Oh, yeah, the Wi-Fi network is a great thing, especially the guest networks.
So one of the things that we don't have Wi-Fi, so I mean that's one of the reasons. And if we did, or when we do, because it has to happen at some point with, you know, tablets at the bedside or in the exam room, we'll have a really good MDM or mobile device management system first. You know, Cisco has the Meraki product, and that has a built-in MDM as well. And I think it's a great Wi-Fi product that we'll probably go with. But you are right, that is an issue. I think it's an issue that we really didn't even know about yet. We don't know all about it as much as we need to know about it. What's your...
Yeah, so I think you're absolutely right. The BYOD, bring your own device,
Yeah.
is, you know, it's there. And we've seen attacks, public attacks that went through, you know, more monitoring through of users through their mobile devices. I think the real problem, at least, you know, from my side, is the legal aspect. If I'm being hired by a company to do assessment of their network, all their, you know, laptops are owned by the company, I can legally allow to test them. Once you start bringing your own device, there are legal issues. You know, what's your responsibility as an employer? Are you allowed, even though you're providing services that BYOD devices use, are you allowed to assess them? So there's a lot of legal issues involved. I can tell you the bad guys don't have that limitation. And we've seen attack going through mobile devices. And by the way, BYOD doesn't have to be mobile phones. We had an engagement where we got into a rogue access point an employee had. So just like you said, he was blocking Gmail, and he was just like, I'm not getting that. So he brought his own access point connected to the corporate network, and now we have a wireless rogue access point, which is not secure. So BYOD is a bigger issue than just mobile phones. But it's, yes, it's out there. It's a big attack surface, and I think the legal issues are, you know, something we need to address.
Thank you. Unfortunately, we have to end. I'm sure you have more questions, and you can grab the panelists on the way out. Maybe one last topic, you know, to comment on and finish. This is now something that has board-level visibility, right? I mean, a few years ago, it used to be the IT department. Now we have CEOs that have lost their jobs because of cyber attacks. Do you want to conclude and comment on the higher level of visibility into this issue?
I can say from my side, you're absolutely right. A few years ago, the stakeholder that will hire me would be, you know, IT managers. Today, I'm getting hired by board people who don't necessarily understand that. It's just, you know, all these cyber things, we want to make sure we're protected. So the level of decision and awareness has definitely gone up, and that's because of the consequences. You know, before, if you got a breach, the IT manager would lose his job. Today, you see, you know, C-level and board members, and you see big, you know, impact on revenues. And I think it's a driving force, you know, in that industry.
Anything to add?
I mean, it's true. It's a different level. And it's probably just because there's more awareness, and it's happened so many times to so many people. But yeah, it goes right to the top now. I agree.
I'd say use that fact to get budgets for projects you want to get done.
Absolutely.
Right. So if you the next time WannaCry is on the news, go get that budget to get some extra Zerto licenses, or get a red team in. And it's an easy conversation to have with executives nowadays.
It's a way to show ROI for something it's very hard to show. How would you show an ROI for a security incident?
That's right. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.